Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's user webinar on WeSuite, the engineering review, job approvals, and commissions. My name is Stephen Asti, and I'll be instructing us through today. So a couple of today's talking points are going to be collaborating with other users by submitting your leads and quotes to an engineer for review and assistance, submitting and tracking your jobs for approval by his designated approvals and managers, reviewing your estimated commissions in a job and using WeEstimate. And as always, we want you to get the most of your time today. So if you have any questions at any time throughout the webinar, don't be shy. Just type them right into the chat. Even if it's just because we've gone too fast, we want to see or hear something again. We have a lot to get through, so let's jump right into it. Okay, well, hello, everybody. Hopefully you're doing well and having a great day so far. So as the talking points kind of suggested, we're going to be spending all of our time today exclusively within WeEstimate. And as you can see from my screen, I have two sessions of WeEstimate open. It's just going to be to kind of show from this. We're going to be doing a lot of today's webinar from the standpoint of the sales user, but I also have the the kind of the sales manager or the person who's going to be doing a lot of the background work open as well. Because I think it's just a good idea to be able to see both environments, both situations, to see kind of the start and the finished product. And it's just easy for me to kind of have two sessions open so I can mimic both environments. So I guess really to start, we can kind of talk about the engineering process. And I think today is going to be on the shorter end of the webinar. It's really not that long of a webinar. So we'll kind of power through this. And if you have any questions at any point, just feel free to stop me, type right into the chat. I'd be more than happy to help. Okay. So with engineering, engineering is a status. It's also a module, so this might not be something that everybody has in place, but the engineering status is something that we offer at WeSuite to allow for engineers to approve a quote, so to speak. So we have approvals and we have this engineered status. The engineered status is where you can go ahead and assign a project engineer to review the quote. So how do we do this? So we'll go ahead and just start by going to the Start New Project button. So we'll just give this a project name. Just call it New Site. Market, select our job type, system type, type of sale. So for us, we have we renamed our engineers to system designer. This is something that's totally customizable to you as an organization. So you might just see project engineer or something along those lines here instead of system designer. But what you can do is if you know offhand who the engineer is that's working on the quote or it's going to be looking at the quote is, you can go ahead and select them from this drop down. If you don't, that's okay. You can go ahead and find them later on. So we'll just go ahead and search for our customer. And we'll just get this contacted. Okay. Also, apologies if you hear heavy rain in the background or thunder because it is pouring today in New York. So this is just our data list. We'll fill that out. And yeah, and from this point forward, this is just our usual screen. So with engineering, the only thing that's important to know is that it's going to be in the status tab. And you're going to see your current status, and you're going to see your system designer, or in most cases, you're going to see your project engineer. So if you didn't know who this person was, you would just see kind of these yellow dashes that are on the bottom. That's your default value. But if you know offhand, so we knew it was Johnny, so we'll keep him there. If we didn't know it, we would have selected him from that drop-down list. And what we do here is we go to our current status tab, and then we go ahead and change this to engineering. So what this is going to do is once we click on save, this is going to prompt this attention message, which is just going to say, this is going to change it to read only. The code will then only be edited by the associate engineer. Are you sure you want to continue? And if you're not familiar with this, the read-only status, basically what that means is that this job won't be editable for you, the user. So you would log into this quote, you try to open it up, it would say read only on the bottom in like kind of this red, pinkish red font, and you won't be able to interact with it in any way. So go ahead and we'll click on OK. So you can leave a message to the project engineer. Hey, Johnny, please take a look at this quote. Let me know. And click on OK. So from this point forward, what happens is that the engineer on the job, so in this case, Johnny Cash, will get an email notification saying, this quote is in engineering, it's been assigned to you. And if you're the user that's, looking to get the quote, approved by engineering, you can send that customized message to them. So I just got the ding in my email. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle over to Johnny Cash. So I have two profiles up right now. Do a quick refresh, and I'll see from Johnny's perspective, I now have this estimate to engineer in my inbox. Now from Tom, so Tom's the user that I logged in as, and just for clarity's sake, Tom's profile is going to be the sales user, and Johnny's profile, he's going to be the approver, the engineer, kind of play the role of that. So from Tom's perspective as the sales user, you're going to see in your dashboard, you're going to see this engineering status tab. Basically what this means is that you have all of your quotes that are in this engineering status, and they're all broken out here. So you'll see that you currently have one, you have the project ID, you have the project name, the estimate name, and the customer. You'd always double click here, and you can open this quote up if you so wish. You can always have a quick reference to it. But for right now, with this, what we would have to do is just wait for Johnny to approve the quote. So Johnny will go ahead, you'll see this, you get the email notification, you go in here. For him, it's okay to edit, and there's no pre-approval required. And from Tom, if he were to open up the quote, he'll just go ahead and see that it's currently read only. Okay?
Hi, Stephen. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm getting a bunch of emails that people can't get in, but you're not experiencing that here.
Sorry about that, guys. We just had some people that said they couldn't get into the webinar, so just wanted to clear that up internally there. But to kind of continue back here, we have the okay to edit, and we also have the read-only status. So what Johnny would just have to do is he would just go into the current status, and he'll go ahead and change it to in progress, and click on save. So now Johnny can then message back the user, and he can just say, hey, Tom, looks good. Or you can just say, hey, it needs X, Y, or Z. And click on OK. Okay. So really with engineering, that's really all there is to it from a process standpoint. Now, every company might do it differently. There might be an organization that does it in lieu of approvals, or there might be an organization that doesn't use the engineering process and they just kind of bake that into the approval process. But what this basically does is this gives you a chance to give eyes to your engineer and let them go ahead and take a look at the quote before it's sent out to the customer. Okay, so now if Tom will go back to that quote, he said it was okay to edit, and he's able to move forward with that. Okay. Any questions on engineering? Any kind of process questions, anything along those lines, anything that I covered, anything you want to repeat again, anything like that? Okay, awesome, I think we're good. Okay, so now with kind of engineering there and engineering aside, the next thing I really want to talk about is approvals. So approvals are, again, they're another module that we have and we offer. So every client, every organization might not have this. What approvals are a way to have kind of checks and balances within your organization to allow so that, if a sales user were to get a job out, it would have some sort of review. Generally speaking, with approvals, we have certain thresholds that we hit where, if a job hits, $10,000 sale, $5,000 sale, whatever it may be, it automatically flags it for approvals. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you kind of an example of how the approvals look. And if you have access to your system, this is where you would go to locate where they are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Tools, System Configuration, Approval Systems. And I'm going to go ahead and just find an approval system. I believe I had made this webinar approval for review. And this is basically your approval interface. Now, a lot of you that are on this call right now are generally sales users, which is fine. You might not have access to do this. But this is basically what your approval is going to look like. Now, you can either have an approval where it automatically flags every single job for approval before it goes out to the customer, or you can have certain exceptions in place. So to get a better understanding of how this works, is this webinar approval just has one line. It's just saying if the sales price is greater than $5,000, it requires approval by the admins. So you can basically set this so that you have all of your groups within your software, and you can simply click on the dropdown and locate the approval group that's required. But again, that's more of an admin type of thing. But I just want to kind of point out where you would need to go for the approval. Again, in that same sentence, if you are looking for what you have in terms of an approval system, if you have access to system configuration, you can find your user and click on the approvals tab, and you can see that you belong to this pre-approval and then this post-approval. So right now, Tom doesn't belong to a post-approval system, but he does belong to a pre-approval system, which is this webinar approval. Okay, awesome. So now let's go back to Tom. And we can use the same exact quote just to make our lives a lot easier. So we're just going to search for camera to make it a little simple to find parts. Now you're going to see here on the bottom, there's no pre-approval required and it's in green. Basically what that means is that if Tom were to go ahead and win this quote right now or start that winning process, he wouldn't need an approval system. He wouldn't need to go through approvals. He wouldn't need to hit any checks and balances. He's under that minimum threshold, so he's good. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and locate the camera part. So we're just going to take any of these guys. That's fine. This one's $330. As you can see right now, we have a sell of 900, just shy of $1,000, and there's still no pre-approval required. So we're just going to change this to 15 quantity. Our sell is now just shy of $15,000, and now we've exceeded that threshold. So now if you look on the bottom portion of the screen, the pre-approval required is now red, which is implying that you need pre-approvals. So if I were to go to status and I were to say, let's just win this job, let's click on save, it'll tell you please complete the approval process and it'll prevent you. So with pre-approvals and post-approvals as well, you would go ahead and need to click on this approvals button. At the very end, you have this approvals tab. You can go ahead and click on the approval process. The same mention, you can also reach out and leave a note. Hey all, please see this quote and let me know if you have any issues. Complete. Pre-approval started. So whenever you enter and submit something with approvals, it'll automatically refresh the job and close it out. So if you want to take a look at it again, you would just have to refresh and open it back up. You'll now see this approvals tab populate within the job. And this basically just gives you a history of your approvals where you can see, who the approval group is, who it's been done by, when it was started, the date it was started, and any relevant notes that you were, kind of put into the job. This is a great tool if you just want to have, kind of a history, right? If you just want to see, who did what and when they did it, this is a great starting point for you. So closing out of that and going back to our home screen here, we're going to see that we now have that quote that's been pushed to our pre-approval status. So basically what this means is that you're going to see all of your quotes that are, kind of in the process to pre-approve. We have a quote here that's green, which means that it's been approved, as you can see by the last action. And then we have one in this kind of pinkish red, which says last action was initiated approval. Now, this is a great way to look at it. I'm just going to make this a little bigger so you can see a little bit better. What this does is this gives you a good organization of, where if you have multiple quotes that require approval, this is a great tool to tell you kind of where they currently stand. And again, what you'll do is you'll also get notified whenever there is an action on that job. So like, let's say for this particular quote, I were to go in and approve it, you would get an email notification saying, so-and-so has approved this job and you're all set. So you would take that notification and then you'd be able to move forward with the quote. Okay. So this job is currently in approval. So we're going to toggle back over to Johnny and we're going to look for estimates to pre-approve. We're going to scroll all the way to the bottom and we're going to see the job that we put by Tom. So we're going to go ahead and open up that quote. And we're going to see at the bottom here, started, not approved. As the approver, you're going to be going into the approvals tab the same exact way as the person who is doing the approval first. And you're going to basically find the approval groups that you're responsible for. So in this admin group, Johnny's the only person that can approve this job for Tom. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this approve checkbox. Leave Tom a message. I'm going to go ahead and click on continue. On the bottom, you'll also see that what was the action that was done. So now the job is updated to say, the action by Taylor Cash approved the quote on this date, and here's your note. So I'm going to close out of this job, go to refresh, go back to Tom and open last estimate. The job is now currently approved and is in read-only status. I'm going to go back to my home screen. That color changed from pink to green, which implies everything is good to go. From this point forward, if you're only using pre-approvals, you're good to win the job and move forward. Now, if you're using post-approvals, you'll see this little button on the bottom, be highlighted or have some sort of information there. So let me go ahead and add that to this so I can show that to you. Let's go ahead and locate Tom. Okay. And we'll open our last estimate. Now, since we added a post-approval system, we'll see this little post-approval button change to the bottom to say that's required. What post-approval is pre-approval allows you to have that kind of initial check where you can go ahead and you can build your quote and you can kind of do it unhindered, and then you send it out to your manager who approves the quote. What post-approval does is post-approval is kind of that last secondary check before the quote goes out, where the sales admin or whomever, sales director or whatever it may be, is reviewing the quote. They can give the final blessing, or they can also say, no, we need to scrap it for X, Y, or Z reason. So for this, we'll go ahead and work on our post-approvals. So the same process with post-approvals, we'll just have another tab that populates within the quote. This is post-approvals. We'll begin post-approvals. So this is slightly different because post-approvals are geared and designed for, kind of the end of the job's lifespan. You're basically hitting that, about to win the quote stage. So it's asking you to select a winning quote. Now, if you're familiar with WeEstimate and you've done this before, you've probably have created, hundreds of winning quotes. All this is doing is adding a revision to your job if you don't already have one. If you had already a revision on the quote and it was sent out or flagged as sent, whatever it may have been, it would have been listed kind of in this little pop-up window. But for right now, we hadn't done that yet, so we just have to go ahead and create a new one. What this does is this gives us a revision of the quote with all the kind of the relevant information, the name, the bin, when it was sent out, the amount, and then the kind of the last updated date as well. Let me go ahead and click on continue. So the same thing here is that we'll also have the option to leave a note to our post-approval person. Hey, John, Please take a look. And again, there's no reason, there's no like requirement to fill a note out. I'm just showing that you can do it. It's not a requirement. Not really everybody does it, but it's just there if you need it. Okay. So we have the estimate must be closed to complete the approval installation, which is great. Closes it out. Going back over to John. He just got notified. And let's take a look to see if he has it. So he doesn't have the quote in his inbox. So in case that happens, if there's anybody on this call that is the kind of working through the approvals or doing the actual approvals themselves, what we're going to have to do is just go ahead and find the post-approval group, who it belongs to, and it looks like the approval system is turned off, which means that we can send it to approval, but nothing is really going to happen with it. So we'll go ahead and we'll just turn that on really quickly. You see we have admins, beautiful. So we'll just do really quickly.
There's one more tab up there you're missing. If you go back to the dashboard, estimates to post approve, it's on the top tier.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so I didn't have to refresh it. Beautiful, perfect. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Sam. Yes, so it looks like we're good to go there. So Tom can go ahead and just go ahead, Johnny can go ahead here and just take a look at this quote. And the same kind of process moving forward, you just go ahead into the post-approval system. Go ahead, just for argument's sake, you can go ahead and take a look at who's on the list to pre-approve and post-approve. Looks like Johnny's the only one that can post-approve for Tom's jobs, which is fine. We'll approve it. We'll leave Tom a note. Hey, Tom, looks good to win, and send. Continue. So something that's a little different here is that as the approver, you're going to be the one that's marking the quote as 1. By default, and this is a setting within your system, so some might have this turned on, some might not, is that you can default the job's 1 date to today's date. You can either have it to today's date, or you can have it, kind of a free form, when the job was created. So I think 9 times out of 10, most people have the one job default to today's date. So go ahead and click on continue. So you get this message. It's pretty standard. It'll just basically tell you that in order to win this, you have to close the estimate and then reopen it. And after just a little bit of a load here, this will then mark that quote as 1. It'll spit it out. As you can see from the estimates to post approve, we no longer have that quote listed. If we were to go back to Tom's profile here, it looks like we're all set. Now let's go ahead and take a look at that quote. It's been approved, pre-approved, it's been post-approved. And the last little button that appears now is just moving this forward to accounting. So that's kind of the last step within the quote, is just to push it to accounting once everything's been pre-approved and post-approved. But again, not everybody uses an accounting system. And if you do use an accounting system, how you move forward, how you proceed might be a little different. So in terms of just your usual post-approval and pre-approval, that's really all there is to it. Really what I wanted to do today is kind of show the perspective of the approver, as well as the person who's the kind of the approvee in this case, the one that's pushing the quote over to the actual person to get the job out. Okay. Any questions so far on what I covered? And I just saw Sam's note. It looks like everybody's was now able to join the GoToMeeting. So if you have any questions, or if you have any kind of comments or anything, if you had missed a little bit of it and you want me to kind of backtrack a little bit, I'd be more than happy to. So any questions on anything that I covered so far?
In there, there was about 5 or 6 companies that couldn't get in, so I think they might have missed the engineering review process. You probably did before the approvals. Is that the case, or no?
Yeah, so I opened up with engineering, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, if anyone does particularly want to see that, you definitely can spend a few minutes. I want to redo it for everybody here, but uh, that was likely. I saw everybody kind of finally made it in here, maybe 15 minutes later. Some people just couldn't get in for some reason. But anyway, keep going with what you're doing, and then if there's some time, maybe go back and talk a bit about the engineering um, review and we-op and we-estimate for passing quotes back and forth.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, really from the last kind of standpoint here, the last thing I wanted to talk about is just from a commission standpoint and a commissions piece. Um, really, and this is kind of a quick thing to look at with commissions. And again, this is also another module, so not everybody might use this or take advantage of it. Um, but commissions are something that we offer where it has a live commissions tab within every single quote as long as you have a commission system assigned to you. So to kind of break this down just a little bit, just because we have the time to do so, commissions are stored in your commission setup. And again, this is also more of an admin type of thing that I'm showing you, but you may have access to this, and it's also good to know. So within your system, you have an entire breakdown of all of your commission plans. So you have a breakdown of kind of all your systems here. And each system that you have has kind of broken out by, these things called clusters, which basically tell you, how we're going to pay you, right? So it's going to say, for example, this one is, 2% of total sale. With sales greater than, anything, you get a payment plan of this percentage. And also you have other rule sets. So you have like 2% of RMR, for instance, based off of the package, things like that. So all of these clusters, all of these kind of rules are, how our commission plans are built and how ultimately we-estimate gets you your commission for each job. Really, the only other thing important to note in this situation from a sales user standpoint is within system configuration, if you have access to it, you can find your user. You can also take a look at, and you can see, let's use Tom in this case. You can see what commission plan you belong to. So Tom belongs to the basic paid plan. And as long as you have this use commission plan rates little bubble filled in, you'll now take effect all of the payment plans for the basic pay plan, excuse me. So it looks like Tom has that plan in place. So we'll go ahead and click on save, and we'll go back over to Tom's job. So now this is the quote that we had pre-approved and post-approved for Tom earlier. You can click on this refresh commissions button, and basically what this does, I mean, it's a little bigger so you can see it. This commissions tab holds and houses all of your commissions for each quote in particular. You can see your total commission here at the bottom. You can see what was based off of sales, what was based off RMR, and then your grand total. So we have it broken out from a couple different categories. Ultimately, your grand total is always calculated here. So this $222 amount is the commission based off of Tom's pay plan that he has assigned to his user. Now, there are different levels to this where we have, commission splits, we have production splits, things like that. So if you're seeing these other tabs, you can see, what your commission value is. Let's say you're maybe doing like a split job or a shared ownership or a commission split on a job. You can always configure it this way. But again, that's a little more advanced. That's also something that is a little more on the admin side. So I'm not going to go too much, excuse me, not too much into that. But kind of the quick gist of this is in the commissions tab, you can click on refresh at any point, and then you'll see your sale commission calculate in your My Commissions tab. Okay, there really is not too much to commissions from a sales user standpoint, But was there any questions on anything that I had covered so far on commissions? Okay, awesome. So what I'll do is, since we have some time, I'm going to go ahead and backtrack a little bit because I know we probably gained about 7 or 8 people on this call. So I'm just going to go through engineering one more time so everybody can see it. So engineering, as I mentioned before, and this is a good refresher, engineering is in effect a kind of a nice complement to approvals. The best way to describe engineering is it is a way that you can assign a job to an engineer or to a project engineer that might be working on the job, whether it's an on-site type of thing or on a blueprint, anything along those lines. And they can basically, it serves as a nice way for them to go through the quote and review it. Okay. So what I'll do is really quickly is I'll show you this on a brand new quote so you can see how it looks. So what this call is, we'll go back to our Glens Gardens. I can spell gardens. It's one of those days. Select a market, job type, all that stuff. So we call ours in our kind of our demo environment System Designer. As I had mentioned earlier, this is customizable. So you may or may not, you may see like project engineer or engineering or engineer, so kind of something along those lines. But for us, we call it just System Designer. So we'll go ahead and if you know it, great. If you don't, that's okay. You can select it later. So to search for our customer. And we'll click on continue. Let's fill out that data list quick. Okay, awesome. Really, all you need to know to assign a quote to engineer is you're going to look at this status tab, and you're going to look for the system designer or project engineer. If you hadn't selected anything, you're going to look. You'll probably have this, like this 4 dashes in place of that. But for right now, we have our user. We have Johnny Cash selected. And the only other thing to note is in the current status tab, you would select and you would find this engineering button. After that, you would click on save. We got this pop-up that just says attention, it'll be read-only. As I mentioned earlier, the read-only status, all that means is that it's not going to be editable for you. So go ahead and click on OK. You can leave a message to them if you want to, but it's completely optional. You'll then be pushed over to your engineer. The engineer will get an email notification that just says, hey, so-and-so, you now have a job in engineering, waiting for you to kind of move forward with it. As the engineer, we'll see this little estimates engineer with this little kind of tool icon there, power drill, I guess. I will go ahead and open up the quote. As the person that's waiting for the engineer to be completed with the job, you'll see this engineering status tab with a little hard hat. Basically what this is going to tell you is this is going to tell you kind of basic information of the quote. It's going to say the project ID, the project, the estimate, the customer, all that good stuff. And as the person that's going to be working with you as the engineer, all you would have to do in this screen is you review the quote. If there's any items on there, you change it back to in progress for the user, and you click on save. You can simply just say, looks good, if you want to leave a note or anything along those lines. Then Tom, in this case, who's a sales user, will get notified of an email that says, hey, engineering has been completed. Then go ahead and open up the quote. And you'll see that it's back to being okay to edit, as well as the current status is back to in progress. So engineering serves as kind of like a nice secondary approval system is the best way I can describe it, where you have the ability to add an engineer to a quote, but it gives you the engineer a chance to review the quote at any point in the quote's lifespan and make sure everything looks okay. Okay.
Stephen, I'll make a couple comments about engineering review as well. Some organizations have set it up where they might hire new sales reps that don't know how to put a system together, or they can do a small system but need help with larger systems. In the RFQ screen from We Opportunity, you can also select an engineer from that point. And so a lot of team members have used this as a way to say, a sales rep got a quote to a certain point and is now saying, hey, I'm submitting this to an engineer. Can you look this over, make sure I did everything right before I submit it to an approval, maybe if you even need an approval, or even in the very beginning, I got a lead, I found all the information about it, this is what they're interested in, I'm now assigning it to an engineer, a system designer, you're actually going to build the quote and then pass it back to me, and I'm going to close the deal now with the customer. It does give you kind of that collaborative approach of either needing help from someone on a quote, or literally tag teaming, passing the baton over and saying, hey, I'm out headhunting, I'm getting a lead, they're very interested, this is what they want, and then someone else is now going to design it and, have that kind of two-prong approach to estimating. And so what Stephen's pulling up now is in We Opportunity, you can see you can assign an engineer from there as well. And then the sales rep never even has to go into We Estimate. But just some thoughts there. And same in Quote Anywhere 3.0, which we're doing actually a deep dive on next week, if that's something you want to look at. But you're able to assign an engineer there as well. So you could be out in the field working on a quote unquote anywhere, and then somebody back in the office gets notified as an engineer and that they need to look at it or see the site survey you just drew or something like that. And again, people can collaborate on the sale together.
Yeah, apologies, guys. I don't know why our site's just being a little slow. There it goes. Just needed to call it out. Let me go ahead and just log in real quickly here just to kind of show you what Sam was talking about. And we'll go ahead and just find a lead. Okay. Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and just take really any of these guys here. Let's go ahead and open one up. We'll go ahead and just change the stage or the status to RFQ. And what Sam was talking about here is you have the option at the bottom to select your project engineer that's assigned to the quote. So I'm logged in as Johnny, so I can go ahead and just assign, Joe McCrane as a project engineer. I'll go ahead and click on OK. Did it successfully. Beautiful. Go ahead and just minimize that. Refresh our home screen. We'll see IMAX Theater pushed over from We Opportunity. And in our status tab, we'll now see that Joe McCrane is our assigned engineer, or in our case, system designer. So as Sam had mentioned, this is something that you can also set within We Opportunity as a default value. If you want to do it, kind of before the job is created, it does work kind of bidirectionally there in two separate areas. So you can set it up as a new estimate within WeEstimate, or you can set it up as a lead or opportunity within your opportunity. Awesome. So the only other thing that I wanted to show really quickly before I kind of wrap things up on my end is just the erg screen here. So we have the erg, and it's just a plug that I always like to try to kind of push in there. Is in terms of commission values and in terms of kind of a lot of other miscellaneous good stuff. The erg has a lot of good value here. We can take a look at any sort of value, any sort of number, any sort of kind of quick hitting information about the quote itself. So from a commission standpoint, we can go ahead and locate the commissions column. So you can take a look at your estimated commission values. If you have any commissions from RMRs, any RMR values, commission splits. If you're using splits in that quote, it'll tell you, who you're splitting with, as well as a percentage, and things like that.
And also here, you can even see like the engineer column is here, approval status is here. So there's a whole class that we usually teach about using the URG. Definitely go look at that recording, and it's probably in a couple months. We usually do it a little towards the end of the year, but in general, this is the place to go to build a report. There's a button on the top left of all the headers that you can turn on and off all these columns that Steven's scrolling through now, so you can build a report that you want, keep on the columns that you would like, and literally run a report of every job you have open, sorted in a certain way, what jobs are out on the streets, what jobs are with engineers now, what jobs are under, are waiting for an approval, what was the date that it was sent, just a reminder to call into people, or hey, this job has been sitting with an engineer for a long time, I need to ping them. This is really the place to go to see everything you've been working on and kind of prioritize what needs to happen next. And again, there's a whole class on this. It's in Teachable as well. There's a user guide that has all of the a big data dictionary of all the columns and what they all mean. And so I would really stress to you to come in here, play with it, create some of your own report views, because it can be very helpful in a way of, putting together kind of a to-do list for yourself as you work on all of your projects in WeSuite. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. Yeah, and just as Sam had mentioned, I was kind of going through all of those while she was kind of giving that rundown explanation, just to give you kind of a clear point of how the org works and how it looks. With this, we were able to kind of trim it down, and we can see, kind of the baseline, at a baseline, kind of quick hitting information about the quote, and I try to narrow it down to everything we were talking about today. So with that being said, any questions, any kind of closing remarks, any comments, anything that we covered today that you wanted to go over again, go through again, or any kind of wanted clarity on, anything along those lines before we wrap up? Okay, looks like we are good. So one question came in. Why would I have proposals in estimates to engineer and not engineered status? So to have proposals and estimates to engineer and not engineering status. So it's a good question. They're effectively yeah, I see what you're saying. So estimates to engineer are going to be as the person who is the engineer. So it's kind of confusing. I totally understand. So Johnny is the engineer in this case. So Johnny is the one who's looking for quotes that he's a part of. He's maybe going on site. He's maybe the one that's working on the actual plan itself or project itself. So he's the engineer. So all the quotes that are set to engineering status are going to be put into this estimates to engineer screen. Very similarly to estimates to pre-approve or estimates to pre-approve or post-approve. So these three statuses here All of these give you, as the person who's approving pre or post, or the engineer who's about to engineer the job. I don't know the proper term, but that's going to be from that perspective. Tom, in this case, is the person who is on the other end, right? He's the person that is creating the job, and he's the one that's going and trying to sell this to the customer, or he's not the one that's the actual engineer, or he's not the one who's a sales manager, things along those lines. So for him, he's looking for these status tabs, because he wants to know, I push these out to to John or Johnny or whomever it may be in that situation, but I want to know where they're currently sitting. So he'll go to the pre-approval status, the post-approval status, or the engineering status tab, so he can take a look and see what is currently in progress, what is currently there, and he can always go ahead and kind of clear these out if they're older ones he doesn't want to see. But they're color coded. It's something that if it was mentioned earlier, but if you missed it, that's fine. You'll have a color coded kind of situation where if it's green, that means it's good to go and it's been approved. You'll also have like a pinkish color where that means it's a little in progress. So that's kind of the breakdown between that. So you might see both. I mean, there might be situations where you're an approver and also you need approvals to push out jobs or quotes, or even an engineering status. You could be an engineer that creates jobs, but you need another engineer to approve to work on the engineering portion of it. So the quickest way I can kind of explain it, because I know it's kind of a lot, is anything with a status is designed for a person that needs the actual thing done. The estimates to pre or post approve for engineer is designed for the person who has that kind of final say to approve it or mark it as engineer. Makes sense. Thank you. Okay, beautiful. Any other questions, guys, before we kind of wrap it up? That was a great question. That was a great question, Joel. Okay, awesome. So thank you everybody for joining us today. We hope you feel a little more comfortable with everything that was talked about, whether it's approvals, engineering, commissions, all that good stuff. And we hope you feel a little more confident in these areas within the application. So as always, if you need to refer back to this webinar, it's going to be emailed to everyone that was attending today. And you can always reference back to it on our website under the Sales User Webinar page. So mark your calendars for our next Sales User Webinar, which is going to be based around how to create inspection sales. That's on Tuesday, August 15th at 1 p.m. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really greatly appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.